kings. Before freedom, God raised up a man. No army could stop him. But the strongest man would not be defeated by war.
If you love me, tell me.
Lord, remember me one more time.
In those days, Israel once again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. There was no king declaring rebellion, no army rising up. It happened more quietly, more slowly, like a forgotten ember still burning beneath the ashes. The altars still stood, the festivals continued. Families still spoke the name of the Lord, but something had changed. Their hearts no longer belonged completely to him. And so the Philistines grew stronger. First along the borders, then in the cities, and eventually everywhere. Soldiers marched along the roads, taxes increased, weapons became scarce. Little by little, Israel learned to live under oppression. 40 years passed, 40 years with heads lowered, 40 years obeying foreign commands, 40 years waiting without expecting anything to change. But God had not stopped working. In the hill country of Zorah lived a man named Manoah. His life was simple. Wake up, work, return home, and begin again the next day. Beside him was his wife. They had learned to live together through the years, yet a silence remained within their house. It appeared in small moments. A bed left empty, a plate never used, a chair that served no purpose. They had no children, no inheritance, no future growing before their eyes. The years passed, and eventually they stopped asking why. Then came that day. The sun shone over the fields as Manoah's wife worked alone, separating grain. Suddenly, something changed. Not the wind, but the atmosphere itself. She looked up and saw someone standing there. A man. Yet he did not seem like someone who had arrived by walking. He simply was there.
You have never had children, but you will. Now, be careful. Do not drink wine. Do not eat anything unclean.
You will bear a son.
No razor shall ever touch his head, because he will be set apart for God from the womb. He will begin to deliver Israel.
Then he was gone. She remained standing there. The field looked exactly the same, yet something had changed forever. She ran and found Manoah. He immediately saw that something was different.
Woman, what happened?
A man came. But he was no ordinary man. We will have a son. And he belongs to the Lord.
That night, neither of them slept. Manoah went outside, sat beneath the open sky, looked toward heaven, and prayed. He was not asking for confirmation. He was asking for guidance.
Lord, if this came from you, teach us.
Days later he returned. She ran, called Manoah, and the two of them stood before him. Manoah took a deep breath, and he asked,
If what you told us truly comes to pass, how should we raise the boy?
The woman must keep all that was said. Drink no wine. Touch nothing unclean. Because the boy will be set apart for God from the womb.
Manoah kept listening, like a man trying to understand something greater than himself. He looked at his wife, then turned his eyes back to the man, and he spoke.
Stay with us. Let us prepare food for you.
I will not eat your bread. But if you wish to offer something, offer it to the Lord.
In that moment, Manoah still did not fully understand who stood before him. He nodded slowly, then he asked,
What is your name? When all of this comes to pass, we want to honor you.
The man stood still as the wind moved his garments. Then came the answer.
Why do you ask my name? It is too wonderful.
Manoah looked at his wife. There was fear now, true fear, but also peace. He set apart a young goat, prepared an offering, and placed it upon the rock. The fire rose slowly. The flames began small, then they grew. The man remained still before them, and then it happened. As the fire rose, the man rose with it. Light, flames, wind, until he disappeared. Manoah fell with his face to the ground, breathing heavily, and he whispered,
We have seen the messenger of the Lord.
His wife knelt down beside him, looking at the fire, and she answered,
If the Lord wanted to destroy us, he would not have promised us life.
Months passed, and then the cry. A boy, small, alive. Manoah held him, looked at him, and he said,
My son, my little son, Samson.
The years began. The boy was growing. He ran, he laughed, he learned. But there were differences. Even as a child, he noticed. One morning, he watched the other children. Then he asked,
Mother? Why do I never cut my hair?
She looked at him, then knelt down, and she answered,
Because you belong to the Lord.
More than the others?
Everyone belongs to the Lord. But some are given a mission.
He did not understand, but he held it inside. Another afternoon, Manoah was working, and Samson was helping, carrying wood. Without realizing it, he broke an entire piece. He stood still, startled, and looked at his own hands. Manoah came closer, picked up the piece, looked at his son, and then he asked,
Samson, was it you?
Manoah sat down beside him, and he said,
Listen. Strength without obedience destroys men. Never forget. You were not set apart to be greater. You were set apart to serve.
The years went on. Samson grew, taller, stronger, faster, sometimes too strong. But there was something else growing alongside, something invisible, something no one yet understood. Because while Israel went on living under domination, while the Philistines believed they controlled the future, in silence, deliverance was growing. The years passed, and Samson was no longer a boy. His body grew, and his strength began to draw attention. When he walked through the fields, the men stared. When he carried a load, it seemed the wood, the stones, and the burdens obeyed his hands. But inside Manoah's house he was still a son, and to his mother he was still a promise. There were nights when she watched him in silence, the long hair falling over his shoulders, the same sign, the same reminder. That was not vanity. It was a vow. It was separation. It was the visible testimony of something invisible. One night, Manoah found him sitting outside the house, looking into the distance.
You seem restless. What are you looking for?
I don't know. But I know it's not here.
Not everything that draws the eyes comes from God.
And not everything far away is forbidden.
Manoah did not answer. He just stayed there. Because there were things a father could teach, and there were things a son would learn only on his own. Days later, Samson went down to Timnah, a city of the Philistines. There, everything was different. The clothes, the voices, the markets, the soldiers, the women, the glances. Samson walked among them like someone who did not belong there, yet did not want to leave. And it was there that he saw her, a young Philistine woman moving through the crowd calmly, without hurry, without noticing she was being watched, or perhaps noticing. Samson stopped, and for a moment all the noise of the city seemed to fade. She turned her face, their eyes met. Nothing was said, but something entered his heart. When Samson returned home, his mother noticed before he spoke. He stayed silent.
You're different, my son. You saw something.
I saw a woman in Timnah. I want to marry her. Among the Philistines, yes. Is there no woman among our own people?
My son, you were set apart before you were born.
I know. Knowing is not the same as obeying. She pleased me. Bring her to me.
That night, Manoah and his wife stayed awake. Outside, Samson remained silent. Inside the house, his mother wept softly.
He doesn't understand.
Manoah answered,
Perhaps I understand too much. Strength came before wisdom.
Days later, they set out for Timnah. The road cut through hills, rocks, and vineyards. Samson walked ahead, Manoah behind, his mother following in silence. For a while, no one spoke. Then Manoah called out,
Samson, did you hear what we said?
I heard. But my heart is decided.
The heart decides quickly. The consequences walk slowly.
Little by little, he drifted away from them. First a few steps, then more, until he was alone among the vines of Timnah. The sound of the wind grew. Leaves stirred, branches swayed. Samson walked slowly, lost in thought. Then, a sound, low, distant. He stopped. Another sound, closer. A roar, deep, violent. Among the vines, the brush split open, and a young lion appeared, strong, hungry, wild, its eyes fixed on him. Samson looked around. No weapon, no stone, no way to run. Only him and the beast. The lion roared again and lunged, and in that instant something came over him. Not like anger, not like ordinary courage, but like an invisible fire, like strength descending from above. The lion fell, motionless. Samson stood still, breathing heavily, and looked at his own hands. For the first time, he seemed to fear the strength he carried. When he returned to his parents, he said nothing. He just kept walking. But something had changed, because until then, his strength had been a sign. In that moment, it began to feel like power. Sometime later, Samson came back along the same road and passed the place of the lion. He stopped. The body was still there, but inside it there were bees and honey, golden, abundant. Samson came closer, looked around, reached out his hand, took some, and ate. The sweetness lingered in his mouth, and he smiled. Then he brought some to his parents. His mother took it, Manoah too, and they ate, without knowing where it came from. Samson watched and said nothing. The wedding began to be prepared, and Timnah filled with music. Men came, women came. The Philistines watched the Israelite with curiosity, some with contempt, others with fear. The young woman came up to Samson during the feast.
They talk about you.
They always do.
Do you like it? And when you don't,
I leave.
then stay.
And for a moment, he stayed. During those days, Samson seemed different, lighter, almost happy. He talked little but watched much. He believed he could belong to that place. He believed he could choose his own path without losing what he carried. 30 companions were placed at his side, not out of friendship, but for surveillance. Philistine men, false smiles, watchful eyes. One night, Samson stood up. The wine flowed among the guests, and voices filled the house. He looked at the men, and he said,
I have a riddle.
Then speak, Israelite.
If you solve it during the days of the feast, I will give 30 garments. If you don't solve it, you will give to me. Out of the eater came food. Out of the strong came sweetness.
The men looked at one another. No one understood. Days passed. The laughter faded. The tension grew. Until they called Samson's wife away from him.
Find out.
I don't know.
Then make him tell. Or we'll burn her. And your father's house.
That night she sat down beside Samson. She did not smile, and he noticed.
What's wrong?
You hate me.
What are you saying?
You gave my people a riddle, but you didn't tell me.
I didn't even tell my father.
So I'm less than them.
Days passed. She wept, she insisted, she drew close, she pulled away. And Samson, who could overpower a lion, could not resist a woman's tears. On the last day he told her. And when the men came, their faces already held the answer. One of them said,
What is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than the lion?
Samson stood motionless as the sound of the feast vanished. He looked at her. She looked away. He understood. Then he looked at the men, and he said,
If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle.
The silence grew heavy. The joy left his face. And in that instant, something broke. Not only the feast, not only the marriage, but something inside Samson. Because the strength that tore the lion apart could not protect his heart. And the man set apart from the womb began to walk by the choices he himself desired. Samson left the feast, but he did not return at once. He walked without direction, the sound of the celebration growing distant, the voices fading, the night growing silent. For a while, he just walked. When he reached home, no one asked anything. His mother looked, saw his face, and understood. That night, no one spoke. Days passed. The silence eased, the anger too. And then Samson decided to go back, not out of pride, not out of rivalry, but because he still believed. He brought a gift, simple, like someone who wishes to start again. He arrived, stopped before the house, breathed, but the door did not open. Then the father appeared, still no smile.
Where is she?
I thought you wouldn't come back. So I gave her to another.
But her sister is younger. Take her.
This time, no one will say it was my fault.
Then he turned and left. But something had changed. Until then, Samson had been wounded. Now, he began to harden. Days later, people began to see him in the fields, alone, watching, waiting, preparing. No one understood. Until night came. Torches, movement, the sound of animals, fire. First one field, then another, then another. The horizon turned red. The wheat vanished, the vineyards burned, the smoke rose. By morning, the Philistines came out. They looked, everything destroyed.
Who did this? Samson. Because of the woman.
The men fell silent. Then they set out, climbed up to that house. And that same night the fire returned, but now upon people. The house burned. She died, her father too. When Samson heard, he did not answer. He stood still for a long time. Then he asked,
Did they do this? Then it's over. Now it's war.
Samson came down. There was no army, no plan. He would appear, strike, and vanish. The Philistines began to tell stories. Some said it was many men. Others swore it was only one. Israel began to hear, in the houses, in the fields, at meals.
Did you hear?
Samson attacked again.
Maybe God is moving.
For the first time in a long while, hope appeared. But Samson did not stay. He went up to Edom, a rock, and stayed alone. Days, without speaking, without returning. Meanwhile, the Philistines gathered men, entered Judah, and made camp. The men of the region came out and asked,
Why have you come?
We want Samson. We will do to him what he did to us.
No man spoke of fighting. They accepted. 3,000 men went up. They found Samson seated, looking at the horizon. One of them said,
You know who rules over us. Why did you bring this on us?
I only paid back what they did.
We've come to hand you over.
Are you going to kill me?
No. We'll only tie you.
Samson rose, looked at them, then held out his arms. New ropes, tight. Arms, chest, wrists, and they began to lead him down. When the Philistines saw, they shouted, they laughed, they celebrated. At last, the man who spread fear was bound. Samson walked head low until he stopped. The wind shifted. And then it came. The same strength, the same presence. The ropes began to snap, one, then another, and they fell like burned threads. The Philistines froze. Samson looked around. No sword, no spear. Then he saw it on the ground. A jawbone, old and white. He took it, breathed, and charged. The impact was immediate. Shouts, dust, soldiers falling. They tried to surround him, but they could not. Every man who came near fell. Fear began to grow, first among a few, then among all, until the whole field turned to flight. When it ended, only the wind remained. Samson stood still, breathing heavily, and looked around. Bodies, dust. He raised the jawbone, and he said,
"With the jawbone, I made heaps."
But then his hand fell. The strength passed. His body grew heavy. His throat burned. He fell, looked up at the sky, and he spoke.
"You gave me this victory. Now will I die here?"
Then the rock split open. Water, clean, flowing. Samson drank. He knelt, saying nothing as the wind passed, as Israel learned his name, as the Philistines learned to fear him, and as the strongest man in the land began to believe that winning was the same as being on the right path. After that day, Israel began to speak his name, first in a low voice, then without fear. Samson.
My nephew was there. He said the Philistines came like an army. And how many were with Samson?
No one. Just him. And a jawbone.
Men told stories, women repeated them, children imitated him. For the first time in a long while, the Philistines were not the only subject. Now there was a man, and where there was hope, people began to seek him out. At first, few came, a man, a family, a request. Then more came, until one day a line formed. Samson was sitting beneath a tree, watching. A man approached and lowered his head.
They took our harvest.
Who?
Philistines.
They took my animals.
My brother was beaten. Please. We need help.
Samson stayed silent, looked, breathed, and rose. No speech, no promise. He just rose. Days later, he returned. The harvest was returned, and the men too. And the stories began.
Does Samson know God?
I think God knows Samson.
The years passed, and Samson began to judge Israel, not as a king, not as a priest, but as a man who showed up when no one else did. Conflicts came, land, debts, injustices, and he listened.
Once, two brothers arrived arguing. One pointed, the other answered.
He lied! He took what was mine!
Did you come to win? Or to resolve?
The two fell silent, and for the first time, they began to talk. People noticed. Samson was not only strength, there was presence. But the more the people drew near, the more he withdrew. One night, he returned home and found Manoah sitting, older now, white hair.
You came back. How many came today? Many. And who came for you? You listen to everyone, but who listens to you?
That night, he did not sleep. Days later, another city, another problem. A woman came carrying a child. Samson kept looking at her.
They took my husband. I have no one.
He took the child's hand, and he answered.
Now you have someone. I'll bring your husband back.
Days passed, and he brought the man back, and the people kept gathering around him. One afternoon, some young men were training, imitating his movements, laughing. One of them asked,
Samson, how does someone get strong like you?
By starting small.
The young men laughed, but he kept looking because he knew it was not true. Another time, a boy asked,
Have you ever felt fear?
Every man does.
Of what?
Of finding out that alone, he is smaller than he seems.
The boy did not understand, but Samson understood. The years went on, the people grew, and the stories too. Men began to exaggerate. They said Samson never grew tired, never lost, never suffered, and little by little, Samson began to listen, and he began to believe it, not out of pride, but out of habit. One night, walking back alone, he stopped and looked at his hands, the same hands, from the lion, from the jawbone, from the battles. He breathed, and he realized it had been a long time since he had asked God anything. A long time since he had done nothing but act. But he did not stop. He went on, because when everyone expects something of you, it is hard to admit that you are tired.
Years passed. 20. 20 years hearing names. 20 years hearing requests. 20 years being called liberator, judge, strong man. But there was one thing no one called Samson: son, friend, ordinary man. And little by little, he began to feel something he couldn't explain. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't fear, it was weariness. Weariness that didn't go away with sleep. Weariness that continued even after victories. One morning, people were already waiting, before sunrise. Men, women, problems. Samson went out. He sat down. He began.
They took my land. They took my brother. I need help!
The whole day, without stopping. When it was over, the sun had already disappeared. Samson sat still, moving. A boy approached, young, admiring eyes. He asked,
How do you do it?
Do what?
Never stopping. I stopped a long time ago.
The boy didn't understand. He went away, but Samson kept watching. That night, he returned home. He found his mother preparing food. Older now, her movements slower.
You look thinner.
Are you well?
I am.
When you were little, you told me everything. Now, I only find out from others.
Samson didn't answer. Later, she touched his hair, as she did when he was a boy, and asked,
Do you still remember who you were?
I don't know.
She smiled, but her eyes were sad. The next morning, Manoah was sitting outside, older, quieter.
Son, when was the last time you rested?
When was the last time Israel rested?
That wasn't the plan.
The days went by. More problems, more people, more requests. One city calling, then another, until it began.
They took my brother.
And only the apprentice I kept beside one, he's coming to one, he's coming to solve it yourself!
The man was surprised. Samson was too. He had never answered like that before. That night, he didn't go home. He walked, aimlessly, like he did when he was young. He climbed hills. He went down paths until he reached the valley of Sorek. It was different there. There was no crowd. There were no requests. Only wind, vines, silence. He sat down. He breathed. He stayed. He returned the next day. Then again. Then more. Until he began to know the paths, the vines, the silence. And then he saw a woman walking among the vines. Nothing extraordinary, but there was calm. She didn't seem to need anything. She didn't ask for anything. She just walked. Samson watched, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't think about battle. Without knowing that his next battle wouldn't be against men. She realized. She kept walking. Days later, he returned. She was there, again. He passed by. She looked. On the third day, she spoke.
You always show up?
Maybe.
Or maybe you're running.
Running from what?
If you knew, you wouldn't be here.
She kept walking. Samson stayed. Days later, he came back. She was sitting, looking at the horizon. He came closer.
Do you work?
A little.
You seem too tired for someone who works little. What's your name?
Samson.
The Samson?
She kept looking, then she smiled. But not the way others smiled. There was no admiration, nor fear, only curiosity.
And when you're not saving anyone, who are you?
I don't know.
She nodded as if she understood. They sat in silence as the wind passed. And for the first time in a long while, no one asked anything of him. No problem, no expectation, no story. Only presence. When the sun began to disappear, Samson stood up. She asked,
Will you come back?
Maybe.
Then, until tomorrow.
Samson began to leave, stopped, turned, and asked,
Your name?
Delilah.
Samson nodded, and he left. Not knowing that some battles do not begin with swords. They begin when a tired man finds a place where he finally believes that he can rest. Samson came back the next day, and the day after, and then again. At first, he would not admit it to himself. He said he needed to rest, that he needed to get away, that he needed to breathe. But he began to realize he was no longer going to Sorek. He was going to meet her, Delilah. She did not ask too many questions. She did not talk too much, and perhaps that was it. Beside her there was no crowd, no judge, no deliverer, only a man. The meetings began small, conversations, walks, silence. She watched, she listened, and Samson, he talked more than he used to. One afternoon, they were sitting near the water. Delilah asked,
Did you always know
Know what?
that it would be different?
No. But everyone knew through me. When I was little, my mother said I'd been set apart.
Did you like it?
I liked it when it was a story. It got harder when it became a responsibility.
She kept looking without answering. Days passed, and Samson began to appear less at home, less in the cities, more in the valley. One night his mother asked,
You've been distant.
I'm just tired.
It doesn't look like tiredness. It looks like you found somewhere.
Samson did not answer.
Just be careful, my son.
Of what?
Of what looks like rest, but asks too much.
Days later, Samson returned to Sorek. Delilah was sitting. She asked,
Do you always listen to everyone?
Almost.
And who listens to you? Thought so.
For the first time, Samson realized she saw things others did not see, or seemed to. The months passed. Now she knew his routines, his silences, his fears. And Samson began to trust. He began to stay. He began to remain. Until the Philistine rulers found out. And they understood. Swords had failed, armies had failed. But now, there was a door. They went to her at night, sat, and laid out silver, a great deal. One of them said,
Find out where his strength comes from.
And if I do?
You'll never need anything again.
What if I don't want?
Everyone chooses something.
They left, and Delilah was left alone, thinking. Days later, Samson arrived. Everything seemed the same, but it was not.
Can I ask something?
You always do.
How would someone tie you up?
New ropes.
She laughed, but she kept it. That night, men came. Ropes.
Samson! The Philistines!
He rose, and the ropes snapped like nothing. He looked at her.
Why did you lie?
Because it was a strange question.
Days passed, and she came back, softer, closer. Another question, another answer, another lie, another attempt. And every time Samson won. But something began to change. He no longer laughed. Neither did she.
Do you trust me?
Yes.
Then why do you never answer? You talk to me, but you never reach me. Who are you when no one is watching?
My whole life, people have expected something from me. And I always tried to live up to it. But sometimes, I just wanted to be normal.
And what stops you?
Me.
Then let me in. Just once.
Since before I was born, I was set apart for God. A razor has never touched my hair. If it's cut, it's over.
Delilah did not answer. She kept looking. That night, Samson slept, deeply, like a man who had finally believed that he could rest. She watched for a long time. Then she called someone.
The secret is his hair. When I cut it, it's over.
Footsteps, a blade, a lock of hair fell, then another, until it was done. She looked at him and she said,
Samson. The Philistines.
He opened his eyes, breathed, and rose, as always, as so many times before. He thought, I will win. But this time, there was nothing. No strength, no presence. For a moment, Samson stood still, confused. He tried again. He moved his arms. Nothing. He breathed harder. He looked around. He tried to understand. Then the Philistines advanced. Hands, ropes, weight, blows. Samson tried to fight back. He pulled, he pushed, but there was nothing. For the first time, his body did not respond. He breathed, he looked, and he saw.
Delilah! Delilah! Delilah!
Standing still, silent, not fleeing, not stopping it, not speaking. Samson kept watching, like a man waiting for something that might still change. Nothing changed. And for the first time, the man who could never be captured understood. He did not lose that night. He lost much earlier, when he began to trust more in rest than in his calling.
The soldiers lifted him, chains, and they took him away.
Until they stopped. Night had fallen, so they threw him in prison. The mockery began.
So this is the great Samson, the Lion of Israel. Where is your God now?
Lift his head.
Samson lifted his head, confused. He felt hands gripping his face. He tried to move. He could not. The first blow came. Pain. Deep. Another. Then another. And then darkness. Not the absence of light. The absence of everything. The man who saw Timnah. The man who saw the lion. The man who saw armies flee. Now he could see nothing. The Philistines lifted him, and they went on to Gaza. The entrance of the city was crowded, people watching. Some laughed, others pointed. No one came close, but everyone stared. The man who had seemed impossible was now a prisoner. There was no trial, there was no speech, there was no king, only imprisonment. They took Samson inside. They placed his hands on a stone. They ordered him to push, and he pushed. The mill turned, and Samson turned with it. Day after day, the same path, the same sound, the same weight. Now there was no morning, there was no night, only darkness. Days passed, then weeks, then months. People began to visit, not out of respect, out of curiosity.
Is this him?
The strong man?
I thought he'd be bigger.
Soldiers mocked. Sometimes they shoved him. Sometimes they threw scraps. Samson kept going. Step, stone, step, stone, step, stone. But when everyone left, the memories came. First, his mother's voice.
Because you belong to the Lord.
Then Manoah's voice.
You were not set apart to be greater. You were set apart to serve.
Then the lion. Then the water. Then Delilah. One night, Samson sat. He leaned against the stone. He stayed silent for a long time. Then he asked,
When was it? When did I start to forget?
No answer. He closed his eyes as if he still could. He breathed. He tried to remember. Timnah, his first wife, victories, the people, the applause, the stories. And then he understood. It had not been Delilah. It had not been the hair. It had not been one night. It had been slow, step after step, choice after choice, silence after silence. And in that prison, for the first time in many years, Samson stopped. He stopped fighting. He stopped winning. He stopped running. He simply stayed.
Days later, he brought his hand to his head. He ran his fingers over it. He felt it, short,
but growing. Then he smiled.
He remembered a little boy sitting, his mother smoothing his hair.
Some things exist to remind you who you are.
And that night, Samson spoke, softly, without demanding, without negotiating. He just spoke.
Lord, I had strength, but I wanted rest. I had been called, but I wanted to be ordinary.
I defeated men and lost myself. If you still hear me, I am here.
Days passed. Outside, the Philistines celebrated. The news spread. They prepared a great feast. Music, sacrifices, rulers arrived, soldiers, families. The temple filled, thousands.
The strong man has fallen! Dagon has delivered our enemy into our hands! Now we will honor Dagon. Bring out Samson!
Gates opened, chains, footsteps. Samson entered, guided by a boy's hand.
Look at him! Where is your strength now? Call on your God!
But Samson went on, without answering. He stopped. He breathed. He felt. Stone, space, weight. He asked the boy,
Where are we?
At the center.
The pillars that hold up the temple. Where are they?
Then he guided his hands. Stone, cold, firm. Samson held on, one on each side. He stayed silent. Around him the feast went on, but for him there was no one. Only memories, his childhood, the promise, the vow, his mother, his father, and then he spoke, not to the temple, to God.
Lord God, remember me. Not because I was strong, but because you are faithful. Strengthen me. Just once more. Let me repay the Philistines for my eyes.
He set his feet, a pillar in each hand. He took a deep breath, and he said,
Let me die with the Philistines.
He gripped. He pushed. At first, nothing. Then, stone. A crack. The pillars gave way, and the entire temple answered. Like a mountain falling, everything came down. Everything ended. And in that instant, in the moment of his death, Samson brought down more than in all his life. Days later, his family came. They searched. They found him. They carried him. They went up, and they buried him. Between Zorah and Eshtaol, in the tomb of Manoah, his father, where it all began. Because some men end as they began. But Samson ended differently, not stronger, but closer.